Raghava, we are very happy to have you join us today for this conversation. Let's start with a very broad question. What does innovation look like these days?
Well, that's a very good question, Neerad. I mean, innovation to different people means very different things. Some people would say, if we take an idea make it into a workable solution, that's innovation. Somebody says if we change a process, make it better, that's innovation. And somebody would tell you that even a change in the way you think and believe could be considered innovation as well. So there's different definitions out there, but innovation in British Columbia right now is happening in a much bigger, bolder way, I would say.
Okay.
Especially in the tech space.
Yeah.
I can give you some examples like a company based out of Victoria, your former place, called LlamaZoo.
Yes.
You probably know them. That's using AR, VR to create digital twinning of mining sites. I mean, that's a huge innovation to be able to have a digital twin of a mine, to be able to do a lot of different possibilities before you actually apply it in real world, because the cost of doing that, the stoppage of work and all of that could be quite expensive, but you can do it in a digital world and then make sure that you work out all the kinks and then apply it in the real world. It's quite large. I mean, that's just one example, but you probably know about a company called Terramera that's based out of Vancouver doing using machine learning, algorithm to reduce pesticide use on crops. And one of the goals is to reduce synthetic pesticides by 20% in the entire world over the next 10 years. So it's like a huge ambitional idea, but great innovation that's going to change the world for the good. So, I mean, these are just some examples, but, Vancouver's Precision OS using VR, AR, and virtual reality to train surgeons, as an example, is a pretty, I would say, pretty bold innovation.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Most of the times it can either be just tweaking of, as you said earlier, processes, or like optimizing things that already exist. And then on the other hand, it can be very extreme of very big goals, very big dreams, and very big ideas. So I'm glad BC is just at the middle point where both things are happening. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So Innovate BC connects innovators with provincial government resources. What are these resources, and how does the process work?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of spend a couple of minutes to talk about that. So we want to ensure that all companies in British Columbia that need funding, resources, and support to start, scale, and stay in British Columbia are supported by us and our programs and the network that we've created. So one thing that we make sure that we do is we help companies at all stages of growth. So right from idea stage to early startup to the time they start to scale up. We help companies in all sectors, so we're not sector agnostic. So it's not like just in one particular area. We help companies in life sciences, so health tech, agri tech, information technology for sure, but more so in clean tech as well. So in all sectors, and the biggest thing that I think the value that we provide is that we help companies in all parts of the province. So we have agencies that are located in, as an example, in Nanaimo, Victoria, Prince George, Kamloops, Kelowna, Trail, and all obviously, in Lower Mainland as well. So through those agencies, we provide those services to companies all over the province.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Can BC become the next nexus of innovation, like Seattle or San Francisco Bay Area, as the world continues to flatten due to various geopolitical things happening around us?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's already happening in a small way, but it's happening. I mean, if you look at if you followed some of the larger tech stories of last year, without question, there were a lot of large Silicon Valley companies who had announced plans to set up shop in British Columbia, Vancouver. MasterCard, they were going to put in a $500 million cybersecurity center in downtown Vancouver. Asana has started up shop here. Grammarly, as an example. Eventbrite. I mean, these are just a few examples of companies that that see Canada as a whole, but British Columbia, because of probably similar time zones, as a great place to be. And I've been asked a lot of times when all of these announcements were being made, like, what's the attraction in British Columbia, Vancouver, for these are world-renowned large companies, and this number of components. I guess when they're using to decide where to locate, Vancouver comes on top in terms of great talent stream. So our post-secondary institutions produce some of the best world-class talent over here, so which is a great attraction for some of these companies. A great government support, like agencies like Innovate BC that provide a lot of funding and a lot of help for mentorship, connectivity for access to money and market. The current exchange rate, Canadian dollar had been around 70 cents. I mean, it becomes much more cost effective, for them to be here. And I mentioned the same time zone, but there's other factors as well. I mean, British Columbia is considered a pretty safe place to live, so it's great for the employees. Very stable political environment, which always helps. And then just the beauty, the natural beauty of British Columbia that will help them attract some world-class resources to come and work over here. So for that reason, I think BC has proven that this is a great place for companies to come and locate. And not just that, but it also helps us attract some world-class talent that we need over here. So somebody from overseas that's looking to that has some very unique talent that can be in, go and find a job and live in any part of the world, would look at British Columbia as one of the higher priority ones.
Yeah. So what stands out about the BC startup community as well as the talent community that's already here?
I think our startup community is thriving. There's lots going on for sure in that space, and again, because of some government support that helps that, providing a little bit of early stage mentorship, some very good programs to kind of guide them along. A lot of government support, from federal or provincial level to give them a little bit of initial. Start to get going, and has created some pretty vibrant, I'd say, startup community, which is great. There's companies like Lumen 5 that you probably see in Vancouver, a company called Tonit that creates a social network for bikers that are based in Kelowna, but growing very, very fast. I mean, doing very well. I mean, these are some examples of companies that started. That's basically idea. The founders had an idea here in BC, decided to connect with one of our agencies to figure out what are the steps in creating a business, and then finding all the resources that help them to get to that stage, and now actually starting to scale. So yeah, a huge, I would say, very vibrant ecosystem, startup ecosystem. And one of the other agencies that we have is called New Ventures BC. Yeah, and they have a competition every year. So they even the last round, they had over 200 applications for companies that wanted mentorship, and it kind of also and then culminates into a finale where the winning company can potentially win anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000, which would be quite amazing for a startup, right? To get that kind of capital injected instead of going out, getting some capital that dilutes the company. This would be basically almost like a grant or a subsidy. Absolutely. And that particular program has created some amazing companies like Saltworks, that are in clean tech space, company Equation, Lumen 5 I mentioned like that. So there's a bunch of winners from that competition that are doing very well and scaling.
Yeah. Can you share some of Innovate BC's recent success with us? And also, what does the future strategy look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The future looks very, very bright. I mean, we are in different times, different world with COVID. So obviously, there's challenges. Every country, every sector has had a huge impact. But here in British Columbia, the tech sector has not been immune, but has come out really, really well. I mean, we're talking to folks all the time, so things are looking really good. I mean, just a couple of impact numbers from Innovate BC for things that we've done, and we continue to support innovation and companies just since 2018. So this is going back 1 year. We supported 1,385 companies, so roughly 1,400 companies that we've provided the mentorship or funding in some way, which is fantastic. Total number of jobs created through those companies has been 2,700, which is and work placements as well. So that's a lot. I mean, if you look at just over 18-month period, the companies that we've mentored generated about just over $180 million in revenue. Yeah. And the amount of investment they were able to secure was about $500 million, so $500 million of investment that came into those 1,400 companies. So that's I think pretty impactful for the amount of budget that we have and the money that we need, that we're able to spend. I mean, that's quite a huge, a nice impact.
Yeah. So how is Innovate BC and your team going to adapt in coming years, just with the changing times around us? Is it going to be more shift towards healthcare-based projects or something non-traditional, something like tourism, or even towards mass architectural engineering using timber, which we have so much of?
That's a very good question. We've had to pivot. The mentorship and funding that we provide to companies, that doesn't change much. But with COVID, the impact that the companies had, we had to make some changes. We did adapt. We opened up our hiring program, so we made it much easier for companies to hire the interns or students rather than having a very strict rules. So we can open it up, make sure that companies have access to these students to continue to hire and get the business going. We've revamped a lot of the eligibility requirements. We've partnered with MyTex, which is a federal government agency that puts interns into research projects. So we partnered with them to put in another 100 interns for free of charge to companies. So instead of companies paying $13,000 or $14,000 or $15,000 to hire these students, through our partnership, through the funds that we provided, an additional 100 students can be hired into this research project. So that was one of the things that I guess if we didn't have COVID, we probably wouldn't have gone down that road. The Ignite program that I talked about, all of the eligible projects now will have to have a COVID focus. So now we're making sure that funding and projects that we fund need to have a COVID lens. So doing solutions for that, which is one of the things. But when you talked about other sectors, absolutely, we're working on tech adoption into other sectors. So if you look at, say, tourism or service sector, restaurants, where they've had a huge amount of hit. And just because they were not digitized, they were not online, they could not continue to do that business. So, we're starting programs so we can help those sectors, get onto the online space. So that's something that we're working on right now, building programs as we speak. So we can help those sectors, just to make them, because these kind of things, you never know when this kind of things will happen again. So we want to make sure that, we make them a little bit more resilient to these kind of factors in the future than they are today.
Yeah. So green projects, clean tech projects can be our signature path to innovation. Do you think our natural resources policy in the province and our brand align with this?
Yes, definitely. So from the province's point of view, green tech, clean tech, a green, clean economy is one of the number one priorities. Absolutely. So any amount of investment or any funding or investment or priorities that the province gives, they want to make sure that it's aligned to, a greener, cleaner economy, which is fantastic. So that's the first thing. And then our a lot of funding that we provide are also aligned to that because our objectives are very aligned to obviously to the provincial government of objectives as well. And I'm very happy to report that British Columbia has done very, very well in this clean tech, green tech economy, in innovation, especially. If you look at the top 100 clean tech companies in the world, I think at least a dozen of them, 12 or 13 of them are located in British Columbia, which is so we have a more than our fair share of innovation happening in the green space here in British Columbia. And I think just because of COVID now, I think our focus will, because it's almost like a restart. So since we're restarting, we can also now restart with keeping the that resilient economy, but also a green, clean economy in mind as well. So I think this is a great time to focus more, and I think British Columbia will lead in that space.
Fantastic. Yeah. You just mentioned Ignite Awards. They just concluded. What can you share about this year's recipients?
There were 4 amazing projects, and I can tell you the first one was a partnership with LlamaZoo that I talked about in UBC. So they're doing this. I had some information on that. If you don't mind, I can very quickly.
Absolutely, would love to hear.
Yeah. I mean, they're creating visualization into a sector that they had not really utilized technology, which is our natural resources sector. So that's a pretty being able to do stuff. Again, keeping the clean economy in mind. So the innovation over there, using data sets and visualization, delivering pretty immersive analytic experiences will help those through augmented reality, that particular sector going forward. I think this is a great innovation that will really change how forestry and mining sectors work. But the most interesting for me was the partnership with SFU and Human in Motion Robotics. And I'll tell you just briefly what they do. Yeah. They are creating the next generation wearable lower limb exoskeleton that's designed to get people out of wheelchairs and walking with full-legged mobility and independence. Just imagine, people that today, can't walk for many reasons, and this particular innovation will help them, will provide them the tools that they will be able to actually walk so independently, which is quite amazing. So that was the second one. The Epic Ventures and UVic, doing a lot of stuff as well. Just recently read about them in one of the newspapers about using molecules that function as a cross-linking agent for polymer chemistry. I don't understand that myself, but apparently they're doing these things are so small particles that are making a huge amount of changes for humanity. And then the last one was again a joint venture, a collaboration between SFU and Terramera, where they talked about a lot more in using artificial intelligence in how they how pesticides are used in farming. So some pretty amazing, life-changing, world-changing 4 projects $1.2 million was given out very recently. This is the largest that we've amount of money that we've given out in that particular project for Ignite. Over the last 4 years, I believe, we've given out over $6.5 million into about 28 projects. And those projects, using the $6.5 million that we gave, they've leveraged other federal government and other funds. That was roughly about $25 million of leverage funding that came into innovation and research. So yeah, very happy about that particular program.
The recipients look very impressive, and they again fall in the quadrants that we were talking about. They are really aiming for some very hefty goals in coming years. If people with disabilities can walk, if the use of pesticides can be reduced 20%, as you mentioned earlier, across the world in coming years, that would be life-changing. At all levels. Yeah. The BC Tech Summit got canceled this year, of course, because of everything that was going around us. Do you envision it taking a different shape when it returns?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but the right decision to cancel. We had done a lot of work. We had some great speakers lined up. We had some great programs lined up. We had done a lot of work actually since last summer, coming into around early March timeframe, because end of May, June 1st was the summit, so we were almost ready with most of the stuff. Unfortunately, with COVID beyond our control, we made that tough decision to cancel it. It's too early to tell what it's going to look like. We're going to have something. There's going to be some. It's going to come back in some form. We're still mulling it over right now. I mean, as as late as even yesterday, there was some discussions about what it could look like. So there's a lot of at this point. I think discussions and for different ideas. I would kind of collating different ideas and see, what might be the best approach coming forward. What would be the timing, and whether it's next year. I'm not quite sure yet. We're not quite sure yet that, in-person gathering of that scale. Normally we have about 3,500 people, can gather. So I'd most likely, talking to the experts that kind of know way more than I do, it doesn't look like next year is feasible. So if an in-person summit had to happen, it will probably be 2022. But we're still kind of, like I said, gathering a lot of ideas, mulling it over, and we will come up with a plan that will have something in some form for next year, at least for the short term.
Yeah. On a personal note, you're a successful entrepreneur. You were CEO of Accelerate Okanagan, and then you are on board of University of British Columbia. How have these previous roles prepared you for the current role you are into?
Yeah, I know. So being in the private sector for, say, about 35 years, that private sector, you have to be very efficient. It's a different way of, it's all about bottom line. So it gives you a different type of training. And then obviously I went into a nonprofit, which was Accelerate Okanagan, which is a different beast altogether. It's, always scrambling for, funding. People want you to do always more than what you can really afford to do. So those challenges kind of taught me how to really manage it, to take a dollar and really stretch it to as much as you can. Yeah. And then my experience with academia, with UBC, being on the board, UBC is a very complex organization, a $3 billion budget. So I learned a lot about, the complexities of running a very large organization in multiple ways. It's, from human resources to delivery of services, responding to emergencies and so on and so forth. So all of that has kind of, given me, I think, a pretty good experience and know-how of now kind of, running this organization, which is an agency of the government, where, trying to use those same learnings, to be very efficient, look at all the processes and make sure that we're doing the right thing, making sure the priorities are right, and making sure that every dollar that you spend has the right kind of impact. So yeah, it definitely prepared me very well, the previous experiences.
As luck would have it, the next three group of people I'm speaking with, they're all fresh graduates from local universities, and they're all starting their own ventures, which is kind of very encouraging and very exciting to talk to these young entrepreneurs full of ideas. What would be your advice to fresh graduates, young innovators who are setting up their new ventures here in British Columbia?
You know, I would say this to those students or anybody that has any idea is to don't be afraid to try things.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's better to try and fail,
Yeah.
at least you know, than not try it at all and not know what you'd been able to do.
Yeah.
So I would say just go out there, venture out, and if you have an idea, try it out. There is a myriad of support systems. In British Columbia, we're very, very lucky. So anybody that has an idea, they can reach out to organizations like us. University, all of the academic institutions have entrepreneurship agencies where they can go and get help. So I would say, try it out, reach out to agencies where you can get some guidance and mentorship.
Yeah.
And as you try things, one thing that you need to keep in mind, like the world has changed. If you were a startup 5 years ago, I would probably not say this, but today with COVID and everything else, you got to be nimble. Things change very, very fast.
Yeah.
So you need to be very nimble. You got to keep that in mind and just kind of adjust and pivot and change very, very quickly, as opposed to say 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time and sharing your thoughts and vision for coming years for Innovate BC. Much appreciated. Stay well, stay safe, and stay connected.
Thank you for having me. This was very good. Really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raghwa.